Let me, for those of you who don't know me, introduce myself. So Peter Young, I'm a senior healthcare consultant at ProMedica. ProMedica is the big hospital system out in Northwest Ohio and Southern Michigan, Southeastern Michigan. So we do not compete with the clinic and UH around the Northeast Ohio area. For what we call managed care, we have offices in Cleveland, Toledo, Youngstown, Columbus, and Wheeling. And Cindy, do you know how I can get rid of the little pictures of everybody on my screen?
I think you can exit out of that.
Let's see.
I just move them over to another screen, but if you don't have two screens.
Oh, there we go. I just moved them a little bit.
Perfect.
So we're going to talk about the workers' comp system today. It's and all the different acronyms and what MCOs are and TPAs and what the Bureau does, what MCOs and TPA services provide, what we provide, how you get value from them. We just today, for the month of May, or May 1 to 26, entered what's called MCO open enrollment. It's a fun little process the state puts everybody through 1 month every 2 years, and that is this month. So Cindy and NOAC have been kind enough to send out a lot of information about it to get things started, and so we're going to just talk it through. I'm a former actually board member in Beechwood and been a board member of a couple of chambers, and very much as an organization we value our partnership with the chambers as a benefit partner. We have been working with NOAC since 2008. I just kind of threw this slide in there because insurance is what we're talking about is a type of insurance. It's complicated, hard to explain, kind of a necessary thing. I think a lot of members do rely on the chambers that they are members of to help them find and trusted relationship partners, business partners. I get it. Insurance is typically, once you have it, it's out of sight, out of mind until you need it, because normally you hopefully don't need it. We have been trying to be that peace of mind partner for the chambers and their members as a provider, and let you all run your businesses. So the workers' comp system in Ohio is almost unique. There are 4 states, Ohio being the only one east of the Mississippi, where you can only buy workers' compensation insurance from the state of Ohio. It is kind of an interesting system, we'll just call it that. The Bureau sets the rates and policies, they collect premiums, and they determine things like this open enrollment process and how that's going to run. Since 2018, my sister company called ProMedica Medical Management, it has had different names over the years. It's a managed care organization. It's been the partner of NOAC since 2018, and then TPA company, ProMedica Employer Services, has been the partner since 2008. So we have I think a long-term working partnership to provide valuable services and most importantly, probably education and advice, which is what this is. So let's start with managed care. There used to be 70 of them. There are now 10 that serve 280,000 employers in Ohio. And you can see the primary services, paperwork management, first reports of injury claims are all filed through the MCO system. Medical bills are paid. Claim management, huge. Injury treatment, every MCO has registered nurses who oversee claims and injury treatment plans. Big thing, MCOs coordinate services. The parties to claims are the Bureau, the employer, the employee, healthcare providers, at times attorneys. So the typical people that have access to and weigh in on helping an injured worker who needs help. And a big thing that an MCO will do is work to coordinate getting people back to work quickly, safely, and effectively. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. By the way, please raise your hand if you have a question, or just turn your mic back on and let me know. So excuse me while I don't cough here and drink something. All right, so besides it being a unique system that Ohio has, there are a lot of unique things about MCOs. The Bureau pays all MCO service fees out of employer premiums, so there is no direct cost for employers to have an MCO, but they must have one. So you'll never receive an invoice for MCO services. You're never going to pay medical bills for approved claims and approved treatments. Interestingly, MCOs, besides paying bills, are actually able to reprice claims to Bureau fee schedule rates. For example, an MRI, if you go to the clinic in town here, could cost a couple $1,000s. The Bureau reprices that to a maximum of $800. So there's a lot of money savings through that medical bill management and claim management that MCOs can provide. Sometimes employers have asked, hey, can we just pay medical bills ourselves and not have it become part of the claim experience? Yes, you can. There's a formal program to do it we'll say the right way, with pluses and minuses, called a 15,000 medical only claim program. There are good times and not so good times. There's pluses and minuses about that program, but it's there. So why do MCOs cost employers zero? Because they are heavily regulated by the Bureau. They have to be a neutral party amongst all those parties to the claim that I mentioned. And they need to work with the TPAs like the group I'm with as well. And MCOs should be able to work with any TPA that's out there. I threw this in here because a lot of self-employed or independent contractors are members of chambers. They actually, if you're a sole proprietor, you do not need to have a workers' comp policy, but there are a lot of benefits to that. Won't have the time to get into that today, but it's very inexpensive to have a workers' comp policy as a self-employed person, and it provides an awful lot of protection for a business if you do have that. I can talk about it if somebody wants to, but that's a good 5-minute discussion. What makes an effective MCO? Kind of my opinion, being in this business for heading into 20 years now, it's really important to have a local provider, I think, because the injured worker is local, probably only knows specific kinds of treatment places, and therefore making sure that the nursing team really understands the local markets is really important. I mentioned safe and effective return to work and quick return to work. I spend a lot of time talking about employee productivity and morale, and we'll talk about some specifics in a few minutes, but reducing absenteeism is a huge issue nowadays, and we'll spend some time talking about that. So getting people back to work, even if they are partially hurt and can't do their full job, it's called bringing somebody back with restrictions. Helps the employee because they can continue to earn a full paycheck, and helps the employer not lose the full productivity of probably one of their more valuable people. Communication, really, really important. Employers don't understand the system. We get it. Employees are probably scared at some point in having an injury and don't know what it's going to mean to them physically as well as to their job. So the nursing teams need to be able to really help out in the communication side of things and recommend services and strategies and control, claim control processes around the way. And then, as I mentioned, coordinating treatments through all the different providers and partners, parties to a claim. So you can have effective MCOs and you can have some MCOs that may not get all of this done very well. Are MCOs all the same? Basically, yes, they should be providing the same services. Again, some perform certain things better than others. And the Bureau this month, as of last Friday, created and published an MCO report card so that employers can evaluate the performance of the MCOs across key measures the Bureau has set up. So you can find that on the Bureau website. As I mentioned, this happens for 1 month every 2 years. So the next one we think will be in 2025. Another interesting thing that may separate some of the MCOs is that some are jointly owned by the same kind of company with a TPA partner. As I said, MCO should work with any TPA, but I think the communication and coordination may work very well at times when your MCO and TPA can walk down the hall or across the floors to each other and have meetings and find out how they can coordinate services between them. And having a single phone call provider may be of real value at times. The next steps with MC Open Enrollment. Casey, I'm going to kind of throw this to you. You mentioned you do this every year. So that may not be who your MCO is. That's probably your TPA that manages your discount programs, things that you do sign up for every year. That may be a guess on my part, because this only happens every 2 years for 1 month. It's a weird system. So it may not be MCOs and TPAs are different. They may be owned again by the same company, but it might be somebody totally different. So now would be the time to, determine who you work with, maybe review your selection options and take a look at it. It's real easy. There are no fees to switch MCOs during this 1 month. You just need to file a form. Switching MCOs doesn't change your TPA choice, or doesn't change your group rating choice for that particular time. Met with Cindy and Rachel last week, and at a meeting of some of the chamber leaders, and had to honestly say, I can't tell you who my sister company is because it's before May 1st, and I can't tell you why to think about them as a positive provider, but I can today because it's May 1st. So Cindy asked me, why should somebody switch to my sister company called ProMedica Medical Management? So here's just some things to think about. First of all, we are a client of, NOAC is a client of ProMedica Medical Management. I think that's probably a positive endorsement of us, and we've been a trusted partner with them, as I said, for a number of years. We are Northern Ohio owned and operated. So if you believe as a small business to buy local, certainly buy Ohio, keep jobs local, keep profits in Ohio, then you might want to think about which MCOs are not only in Ohio, but here in Northern Ohio. There are a couple besides us. And again, I think the local nursing teams, by the way, the nursing teams are all headed by a registered nurse, I think almost every case, but the nursing and support teams that we have surround the NOAC footprint. We have offices in Cleveland, Toledo, Youngstown, Columbus, and Wheeling, which I think gives us, again, this idea of local knowledge of the hospitals, physicians, providers, clinics, urgent care and treatment centers. We know who these people are. We know how they work. We often have one-to-one working relationships with them because they are local. We go visit them. ProMedica, or PMM, is the 4th largest, nearly 22,000 Ohio clients. But I'd like to say that we're small enough to still assign, which we do, a complete team of nurses and support staff to each client. And we are small enough to assign one primary contact person to each client, meaning personalized communication. And we are small enough to do these kinds of meetings. I do meetings on behalf of, when I'm invited by NOAC to speak and educate and inform and talk about things. So I think that is something that should be very valuable, that education piece. Again, this is strange insurance we're talking about. And then by the numbers, if you're a numbers person, here are 3 statistics that we claim fame to for this go around in May of 2023. And bottom line to costs and businesses in insurance is low premiums. And they did their work on this at PMM, and here's the little footnote for each of these. But we currently have the lowest premium per policy and for medical only claims of the 5 largest MCOs in Ohio, which we take to heart as a measure of our success and a top 3 ranking in employer satisfaction. So if you're looking for who you work with, and if you're looking for a partner that doesn't cost you anything directly, I think does a good job, it doesn't cost anything to switch, please give us a thought. I'm not here to sell it today, but I want you to think about it while you have the opportunity this month. So let's switch hats and start talking about TPAs. Again, they are typically sister companies to MCOs if they're owned by the same ones, or partners if they are not. So TPAs are, unlike MCOs, we are actually paid by the employer to provide services. So we need to do something, add something of value. And actually, employers are not required to have a TPA, unlike MCOs, and you can hire a TPA at any time. It's typically annually through the enrollment in these discount programs. There are 9 total, believe it or not. 3 of the more active ones or popular ones are listed here, but there's a lot of things to choose from and a lot of additional service programs that can provide not discounts, but rebates. So when somebody says, hey, I'm getting 53% group rating, which is, by the way, the best you can do, you actually could get as much as 67% savings if you enrolled in everything. So just so you know, there are lots of choices out there. But part of what this is all about is that TPAs represent the employer's interest. We are here to be the TPAs. TPAs are here to be the employer's advocate. So these other programs and consulting, and I'm going to talk about a group of grant programs that are available. These are all some of the consultative advice and solutions that I kind of like to say are what TPAs provide if they do full service work. So we have client contacts that are office managers, HR managers, controllers, CFOs, safety people. There are lots of different people that get their hands involved in workers' compensation. Wearing a lot of hats is not easy. There's a lot of expertise to be on top of. So again, having a trusted partner, you can see a lot of the consultative work, claims and risk management and control, rates and cost consulting. Excuse me, this is a lot for people to handle when workers' comp is not their full-time job. And that's especially true when you broaden the subject of insurance to look at employee absences. And I'm going to tell you why that's kind of crucial here in a minute. But being on top of this might be a good reason why to have a really strong TPA partner that can fill in the gaps of knowledge and actually administration of things, because it's just hard to get on top of all of this and stay on top of it. And here's a group of absence benefits for employees, some of which are mandated either at the state level or the federal level. These are several of these are benefits, insurance benefits that are variable that you can or don't have to offer. And some other areas that, given the world that we live in, health-wise and what we've been going through the last couple of years, employee health and wellness and mental health and behavioral health are really some important aspects of managing people these days. I still haven't met very many employers in the last couple of years that aren't having trouble hiring and retaining skilled employees. But an absence of a current employee who's probably one of your most experienced and productive employees magnifies the problem, because they may be the most valuable and hardest to lose for a short period of time if they have an absence, an illness, or a disability issue going on. And this, even still, we are still at, I think, the lowest unemployment rate in a long time. Employers are still offering special benefits to sign-up benefits or retention benefits and bonuses, but health benefits and employee absence benefits are something that employers have begun to consider again, these kinds of benefits. to provide a competitive advantage in the hiring and retention marketplace. But do these absence benefits really make employees happier, healthier, more productive? We'll talk about a couple of these thoughts, but it does create a cost versus care conundrum is what I like to talk about. So great to offer these, but do they really work? I'm going to start with this little lovely slide because we're going to talk about some of these programs now. So this is one of my old favorites. So what a hot day it is today. Good thing we have this backhoe protecting us from the heat. Starting off with safety, I can't think of a slide that better talks about stupidity in terms of how to take care of each other on a work site. That's 4 to 5 potential death claims that we're looking at here if that thing happens to break. And that is not the right way to do it. So just an example of what happens in the workplace. So the cool news is that the state of Ohio's Bureau of Workers' Compensation has a whole division called Division of Safety and Hygiene. Their goal is to make the statement the best claim is the claim that never happens. And they, again, since the Bureau pays for things prepays for things out of premiums, here's a whole nother set of services. They are free. There are safety classes and programs. They have a learning center with virtual videos and in-person meetings that you can have with very experienced safety people, all that work at the Bureau, usually have come out of industry and have a wealth of experience. And they have, here are 9 safety grants that are available from the state of Ohio. Most of them are without strings. It's $160,000+ of available grant money to help employers pay for programs and processes and policies that they probably don't have the time, expertise, or budget to pay for themselves. The 5 on the left-hand side are a little bit specific to certain industries, but the 4 on the right-hand side really are available to just about any employer in Ohio. And the safety intervention grant at the bottom right is a $40,000 match grant to help employers pay for safety-related products and equipment. I say match grant, so it's a 3-to-1 match. So you can get a $53,000 purchase of something. It will cost you only $13,000 of your own money. You get 40 from the Bureau. That's kind of the 3-to-1 side of that. Not everything's approvable. You can't buy a backhoe. You can't buy a forklift and end up in that picture. But you can buy, some of the more popular things are noise reduction, air quality, slip and fall types of items. It's free, folks. Just take advantage of this money. You, in effect, prepaid for. You ought to at least explore these things. That slide already handled. Return to work. It's one of the most important absence benefit tool programs that the Bureau has because it can control claim costs, which can control benefit costs and really help control employee productivity and smooth operations because you're bringing people back to work. And that is into what's called modified duty, probably before somebody 100% healthy. So if somebody breaks their arm, that doesn't mean that they can't work. It just means they have to work with restrictions and cannot use that arm for 4 to 6 weeks while it heals. Now that could happen in a bunch of different areas. It's not just workers' compensation. They could be playing softball on the weekend, and that's a health insurance claim, but they can't work when they come back on a Monday. Again, you've lost a very productive worker. Recurring cancer treatments may be more intermittent in their nature. That could be a short-term disability insurance situation or Family Medical Leave Act if the business is large enough. And then certainly work-related accidents or injuries fall into the workers' comp space. One of the most practical and affordable programs the Bureau makes available is a 10th grant that we haven't talked about yet. It's called Transition Work. It's one of the Bureau's signature programs because this is a 100% reimbursable grant. What this is a program that you build in a development project one time and then you've got it. You get reimbursed 100% for the grant, and it is the only grant program the Bureau also offers that has a rebate of up to 10% off of your premium, additional to things like group rating, if you have occasions during a year to actually use the process to bring somebody back to work. Many employers do not have a TWP, as we call it, transitional work program, or their transitional work program they built 20 plus years ago, and the last time the Bureau had a 100% grant. And that was developed by an HR manager, 4 HR managers ago. I met recently with a couple of employers, didn't even know they had it. They looked it up and found it in a closet, didn't know what it was, how it worked. And now the Bureau's made this grant available to not only develop a new one, but upgrade, modernize, redo the one that you had 20 years ago. Again, it's the only program like it that they're offering. So you find a way through the functionality of work that somebody performs to find and accommodate the restrictions they have for that broken arm. You bring them back and find work for them to do. The employee benefits, they get to continue earning a paycheck, and the employer keeps the claim costs down, which controls their benefit costs and keeps somebody working and not lose that employee. What else is nice about this, since Ohio is willing to pay for it, you could use this transitional work process, as I mentioned, for health insurance claim situations, short-term disability, FMLA, workers' compensation, and you can, by the way, take it out to other states. It's certainly a strong enough program that the processes and procedures, et cetera, you can use in multiple states. I have employers doing that all the time. They use the Ohio program to build their corporate process all throughout the country. So it's very, very helpful. This is a little bit again about how it works. The third bullet down, most claims in Ohio are slips, trips, falls, stress, strains, sprains. Again, these are the kind of claims that this process will work best on. And then let's talk about the financial side of this. So I don't think anybody on this call hasn't anyway experienced what happens when you have just one or more high cost lost time workers' comp claims. Everybody who's in a group rating discount program would have the likelihood that they're going to lose that discount for up to 4 years, which means basically doubling or worse your premium. And a $10,000 premium goes to $20,000 times 4 years is basically a $40,000 hit to your bottom line. And if your margin on your business is 25%, if I'm doing the math right, 40,000, that's $160,000 of sales, 40,000 times 4, just to offset the cost of the increase in your workers' comp premium just from one claim that maybe or maybe not could have been managed a little differently if you'd had this process in place. So it's a huge financial risk management approach. So let's look at a couple examples. There we go. This is a manufacturing research from the Bureau. And if you look at the average cost kind of in the middle left, the average cost of a claim, this is a couple years old, but in small manufacturers, $5,550, split in the following way. Medical cost, just about $900, and compensation, again, instead of bringing somebody back to work, the person had to stay at home and earn compensation from the Bureau, which is the alternative, $32,000. I can pretty much guarantee you 9 out of 10 times a $32,000 claim will take you out of this group rating process, double your premiums times 4 years. Not a happy situation. If you can make a claim, whoops, we'll come back to construction in a second. If you can make a manufacturing claim look more like a $900 medical claim and not a $32,000 to $3,000 total claim, then you're looking at a much better outcome of the claim and the cost on the financial side and keeping a worker productive and healthy. construction, here's another example. It's a little bit more magnified, but the same concept. So this is something as a grant that I would say run, don't walk to take advantage of while it's still out there, while it still is at 100%. If you don't have one of these, great. If you don't know if you do or do not, please contact me. No cost or obligation. I'd be happy to help you figure this out. Casey, if you have clients that might be looking at this or looking at ideas from you, hey, I'd be happy to be a partner with you to do some free consulting for you and with you. You chamber leaders, I would love to get in front of your members and talk about grants like this while this money is still out there. Next program, for those employers that have second shift, third shift, weekend shifts, and somebody gets hurt at off hours, you're really leaving it up to the employees and the supervisors to make medical decisions, probably not what they're best at. And if it's just a small enough boo-boo where maybe it could be treated with first aid, or certainly not at an ER, which of course we all know is very expensive, then this is a service. This is not a grant, but this is a service of basically having a 24/7 registered nurse call service, call line service, where registered nurses can really, first of all, if it's serious enough, help get the medical attention that somebody needs right away, but also triage, as we would use the word, to decide what kind of happens next, how assess the injury, determine levels of appropriate care, etc. And if you're in the construction or manufacturing industries, you're very familiar with the term OSHA recordables. That's non first aid types of injuries. A lot of employers in those industries judge success on safety and how minimal their OSHA recordables are. So this is just another way to shift some of that safety and management approaches to something more manageable using registered nurse calls. The Family Medical Leave Act, also affectionately known as the Friday Monday Leave Act, is for somewhat larger businesses who have employees who can qualify for intermittent unpaid leave based on their own or family care or caring for veterans or military members. It's a very busy program in terms of leave certifications, approvals, tracking. So a lot of employers are coming to the situation, especially if there's no HR necessarily department anymore, of outsourcing things like FMLA to TPAs like ours, who can manage all this as well as be the intermediary for some very tough conversations with employees who may be pushing the envelope a little bit. I have a couple of fun examples. True story, we had a woman who was a mother with relatively young kids who claimed to get migraines when her children had snow days. Not really the case where that is going to be considered a certified leave. We had to have a conversation with her, and sadly that changed for her sake. We also have employers whose employees take long weekends to go hunting in hunting season. They claim they get sick. It's just interesting to see how that plays out when you have those conversations, because if they don't get the certification and leave requests, then they lose out on paid days of work. So just some things that could be really important where this federally mandated benefit is if the business is large. So I mentioned earlier, behavioral and mental health certainly been taxed the last couple of years with COVID, among other disease issues that we've been dealing with. You can see some everyday kinds of problems that we have in our daily personal lives. And if we bring it to work, we don't necessarily try to, but if we somehow bring it to work where we're getting distracted, that's called presenteeism. It's a new term. And you can see some of the examples. I will point out the third from the bottom, all the types of housing, food, clothing, and transportation insecurities that are out there. Read something recently, almost 39 million Americans were food insecure for at least part of 2020, or their kids. And 1 in 6 kids had one or more of these kinds of issues. We work with a school locally whose kids go home on a Friday and don't eat a full meal until they come back to school on Monday. It's just, we have a lot of things to do in this country to try to help people in need. Employees can take advantage of an employee assistance program for their own, for themselves and their families, and get counseling. This is again, for fee program and service, but we have mental health experts and counselors available to help employees with these kinds of problems. It's confidential. And if an employer wants to offer this, it can be really a benefit to keep your best employees, again, productive and hopefully not missing time because of these kinds of issues. Again, we think being locally owned and operated and connected to the resources in the communities and funding sources is really a worthy goal when you talk to an EAP about what they can provide as services. Workplace wellness, not mental and behavioral health necessarily, but physical health. State of Ohio is actually, I think, doing a really great job of being a leader in this field in the United States. They offer 2 workplace wellness programs, one directly with the Bureau called Better You, Better Ohio, and then the 11th grant of all the grants that we're going to talk about. And the workplace wellness grant, both of them offer the following services, just very differently. In the programs, the employees who participate, and it's voluntary, take a health risk questionnaire, a lifestyle risk factor questionnaire. They require a body biometric testing for specific health risk factors, obesity, glucose, triglycerides, blood pressure, things like that. And then wellness programs to address these. And this is really where the biggest difference is. Address the particular participants' health and lifestyle risks as they present through the data. Of course, either one is confidential in nature, and the confidential information is stored for the employee only. It's not shared with the employer. So what makes the grant program, I think, really something that is a very high value approach? First of all, it's 100% reimbursement, the way that our folks do this. And the way it covers up to 50 employees a year, provides these services, and it's done on site and personalized on a one-to-one basis with a nurse I work with. I actually participate in this program, so I guess it's a little near and dear to me and a little passionate about it. But we make available for 12 months at no cost to the employer or the employee, not only the testing and all, but one-to-one coaching and education from a registered nurse who comes on site to do this. We think of it as really a leadership model on the part of the employer to show their employees that they value them and that they're trying to help them with their health and wellness. A lot of employees cannot afford or do not have the time to go see a personal physician every year, and this program is not meant to replace that. But in terms of just being kind of an early warning approach to what's going on with your health, we're seeing a lot of people who are now pre-hypertensive with all the stress that we have going on. Blood pressures seem to be, when we test, through the roof, and there are frequent times when people don't know it. And they are asking for a problem if they don't address it. So we've been able to at least help them identify a problem and trying to get them some education and expertise through a nurse and direct them what to do next. So we think this is a very worthy, by the way, this is a 4-year program. It doesn't have to be done all 4 years, but can be. So it's really a valuable way for an employer to invest in the health of their employees. Oh, by the way, it probably could help keep their healthcare costs down or workers' comp costs down, sure. But you're really showing your employees that you care in this program. We're very busy with this grant and highly recommend it. Let's talk about telemedicine. So certainly grew up during COVID when doctors didn't want to see you and you didn't want to see doctors and you didn't want to sit in hospitals or waiting rooms. So the world made it very easy to start using virtual appointments on your smart device. So Anthem offers it through another partner here at NOAC. Hospitals are offering this. We're not alone in offering this, but what we do is a little bit maybe different in terms of who we're trying to target. Yes, it's only for non-emergency treatments. These are examples out of my family. When I had young kids a long time ago and this didn't exist, gosh, my kids seemed to get pink eye or strep throat or whatever at 2 a.m. on a Saturday morning when nothing was open. If it was very expensive. And I couldn't see a doctor for, until the following Monday or whatever. So these are just typical kinds of things that could have, in my case, would have been great to have this. It's a user-friendly app on a smart device. The modern plans have family plans, individual plans. What we do is a little differently is the following, the last two bullets. We make this available to people without health insurance. And we make it available to be employee paid or employer paid since it is not part of insurance. And if you don't have insurance anyway, and this isn't a way to take advantage of zero copay approaches with lots of other services and make it available and take advantage of this, because still it's hard to see a doctor. My doctor takes me sometimes as many as 14 to 24 days to get an appointment. And by then I'm well, or I had to go to urgent care, which is expensive. So I'd really think in partnership with all the other NOAC partners like Anthem and the providers here in Ohio, such as the hospitals that offer this, just making sure that everybody that needs this and wants this should take advantage of it, because otherwise health insurance, as we know, is a very expensive option that you don't need for pink eye and fevers and sinus infections and sprained ankles and getting rashes and stuff that like my kids used to try to do too. So, and with that, I'm open to questions. I think I've left enough time.